Hey guys, my name is Nick and welcome back to the channel, and we are done. The road to Dark Zones is over and I've managed to complete my remaining models. I think I had 38 models I needed to paint in the last few weeks in the run up to the campaign. Campaign is next weekend and I am done. So what this video is going to be is a full showcase of my 1,750 points main army and my combat patrol. Now I have shown various elements of this over time. There were a couple of units missing or have been proxied and so on. That's now been fixed. For the final units that I have completed, there were 2 Zangors that I needed to do, as I realised that my combat patrol was actually shy of 1 model. But I'd painted 20 Zangors, one of which was the Brayhorn, so the guy with the big trumpet. And my combat patrol can't afford to have him in it, so I had to paint up a Zangor to replace him that didn't have it, so he's fully WYSIWYG with Zangor blades. And then I needed another one because I realised that I was shy of enough points that I could afford another Zangor. So my combat patrol is now up to 11 Zangors in one unit and 10 in another, neither of which have the Brayhorn. So yeah, I've now got those 22 Zangors in total. 21 is in the main force, and those 2 that I've mentioned, switching out the Brayhorn in the combat patrol. The other units I needed to complete were 2 Flamer Rubric Marines. So 2 Rubric Marines armed with a Warp Flamer. I was missing those. I've completed those, done the iconography on the shoulder pads and so on. Attached the flamers because I had been running them just with bolter guys but without the bolters attached, so you could tell which ones were which. That's now fully done, so my list is finito. I am so happy I've managed to do it on time, ahead of time, which means I am fully ready to go to the event, which I can't wait to go to. Now Zinch has been whispering in my ear saying that I have been misattired, wearing incorrect t-shirts. I think I even did one with an Alpha Legion t-shirt, which is outrageous behaviour. So I have sorted out some merch and procured the appropriate attire for attending the campaign and making sure that I do please the Changer of Ways. So here we go. I have the All Is Dust Thousand Suns Prospero t-shirt. I think we're suitably ready to go. So without further ado, we're going to crack straight into the video, and it's a full showcase, as I said, of all the models in the list. Let's get straight into it. So we're going to kick off with a couple of opening large shots of the entire force. So this is both the combat patrol units and the 1750, although there is mostly an overlap other than the decimator engine into that combat patrol. So we'll go through each one, so don't try and necessarily spot each of them, just a couple of different angles so that you can see all the forces splayed out for your viewing pleasure. And then we're going to go through in sort of HQ downwards kind of order as we go through this. So first up is the 2 sorcerers. So this is my warlord sorcerer, the one with the stick pointing upwards, or his staff pointing upwards. He is my warlord. It makes it much more easy to identify than the other one with his pointy stick. Now he's running 2 psychic powers, which is prescience and warp time, because those are the 2 powers I really want to make sure I get off. And his warlord trait is the one that gives him the High Magister, which is +1 to casting spells. He's also going to be carrying the Dark Matter Crystal artifact. So yeah, he's the one that enables a unit to be able to teleport across the battlefield in effect. But he still has his 4-stave and an Inferno bolt pistol. No other weapons upgraded onto him, and obviously he is on a Disc of Zinch as well. The second Exalted Sorcerer then, he is also on a Disc of Zinch, and this guy is running Death Hex and Weaver of Fate. So he's the guy that can remove or buff my invulnerable saves. So it means it's quite easy to remember which way round my psychic powers are going to go as well. So the non-warlord has the buff or the negation of invulnerable saves. Again, 4-stave and Inferno bolt pistol, but he's also running a relic of Helm of the Third Eye, which enables me to regenerate command points every time the enemy uses a stratagem. A really good ability. I think most armies or most factions have some kind of ability to regen command points somehow, and this is the way the Thousand Suns do it. And I burn an awful lot of command points, so definitely useful to try and be able to regain a few more. So into the troops then that make the rest of the battalion up. So this is the 10-man rubric squad. You can see there, second from the left and in the middle are the 2 flamer guys. And then the Soul Reaper cannon is second from the right. Everyone else is running the Inferno bolt gun. Now my Sorcerer is running a couple of powers. He gets to take Smite and 1 other power. And this time he is taking Temporal Manipulation, which is an easy warp charge of 6. And if manifested, you pick a 1000 Suns unit or model within 12 and that model can heal D3 wounds. Really handy for piling that onto the Forge Fiend and the Mutalith Vortex Beast. They regain 1 wound automatically anyway, but the ability to gain a few more, especially when you're worried about the degradation of abilities on those guys. And also it might be quite handy to cast back on a Warlord or a Sorcerer, trying to get some wounds back on those guys as well. But primarily the idea of those is to give it back to the monsters in the army. Now the big crunch unit is 21 Zangors, including a Brayhorn, all armed with Zangor blades. And these guys are going to be probably the main recipient of that Dark Matter Crystal teleport. So just depending on what the objectives are and everything else like that, and how the battlefield tends to pan itself out. But we're going to be, the idea is to be able to teleport this unit, but I really want to be able to make sure that the Mutalith can buff them as well. So need to be aware of the Mutalith positioning. Finally, rounding out the third troops choice is 10 Chaos Cultists. Nothing special here, a 40-point unit of 10, armed with auto guns, and these are now finished as well. So that is the final cheap unit to round out the battalion. Next up is the Zangor Shaman. Now I have done an in-depth series on him and how best to use him, so I won't overly go into the same details on him. He is running Glamour of Tzeentch, which means on a warp charge of 7, a friendly 1000 Suns unit within 12 inches, the enemy has to -1 to hit. Now that's not just melee, that would be from shooting as well. Obviously he has Smite being a standard Psyker as well, but his ability to add 1 to hit rolls of friendly Zangor units within 6 is a really cool ability, and what I'll be doing is running him very close to my Enlightened. And this is the Aviarch of the Enlightened, so basically the squad leader, and then there's a unit of 6 in total, so the Aviarch +5, and I'll be running them very close to that Zangor Shaman, and these guys are awesome. Had a few people question whether I should be running bows instead of divining spears on these for a bit of range, but I'm actually preferring the combat version, to be honest, and I didn't really have the points for the bows anyway, but I really like the fact that these guys are close combat monsters, and that really kind of helps some of the balance in my army. So I've got a reasonably good 50-50 mix of shooting and combat, so all my Zangors and so on are real sort of combat focused, and then the rest of it does all the range for me, so the Forge Fiend and the Rubrics and so on will do the range, plus the demon side of it, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, still within that same battalion is the Mutalith Vortex Beast. I've done a full painting tutorial on this guy. I'll make sure that I link all of that stuff in the description below and put cards up on the video as you go through, so you can easily click to see exactly how I managed to paint this guy. As I said earlier in the video, I was really kind of put off because, you know, it's a big scary monster, right? And big scary monsters to paint are normally a bit more challenging. I mean, I'm quite good at painting quite sort of imperial boxes, so you know, knights and rhinos and vehicles like that. When it's a bit more organic, I do tend to struggle. One of the reasons I don't run Tyranids, well, I did back in 3rd edition, but they're long gone. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. Quite happy with the way it turned out in the end. Had no real idea what I was doing, but yeah, feel free to go and check out the painting guide that I did on this model. Now, rounding up the battalion, another heavy support choice is the Forge Fiend. Now this guy is going to sort of stick closely to my Warlord for the ability of Prescience, and adding Demon Forge Stratagem for reroll hits and wounds. With that added +1 to hit from Prescience, this guy is my anti-aircraft or anti-heavy armour kind of stuff, really. It pumps out at damage 2, pretty good at taking out multi-wound stuff, but primarily he really is my anti-aircraft vehicle as such, as I'm not running a Helldrake or any sort of flyer in this list, and I'm expecting to face maybe 1 or 2 flyers as we go through the campaign, so something with the ability to take them out. I mean, the Zangors, the Enlightened, sorry, could really do it if they really wanted to. They have the ability to fly, so they could engage in combat, but really, you know, the Strength 8 Hades autocannons are the way to go for me. So that kind of rounds out the battalion. So we now move into the Tzeentch Demon element. So I'm running a Vanguard of Tzeentch Demons. and this is led by this little guy. He is a Fluxmaster, which is basically a herald on a disc. He's running a couple of powers as well. He's running Boon of Change and Flickering Flames, as well as a Staff of Change, so he actually has +6 to his smite roll. But really what I'm looking for with this guy is the ability of Flickering Flames. Now Flickering Flames is pretty awesome because that allows you to add 1 to any wound rolls made for that shooting weapon for a friendly Tzeentch demon unit. And talking of the ability where this goes, it's on my Flamers. Now Flamers near this guy are already up to strength 5, so they're typically wounding toughness 4 on a 3-up. Now if you combine Flickering Flames, which is only a warp charge of 5, so pretty easy to get off, you're also wounding toughness 4 stuff on 2s. So auto hitting 8d6 shots, wounding on 2s against toughness 4 is immense, but it's also going to be good against really high toughness stuff. Say I come across some knights, instead of wounding on 6s, I'm going to be wounding on 5, so there's some good benefit for that particular ability. Now they're going to be backed up by these guys, 2 Exalted Flamers. These are my heavy weapons of the unit. They are characters, so I hide them in amongst my Rubric Marines. Is typically the way I go. In fact, I've sometimes put 1 inside my Zangor unit as well. But basically totting mini las cannons. So and being characters, they can't be picked out. So that's the purpose of those guys. Now let's move into the combat patrol. You can see here I've got a couple of aerial shots of the entire lot. So it's 1 unit of 10 Zangors, 1 unit of 11 Zangors, the Exalted Sorcerer on disc, and a Decimator engine. So in this list, the Exalted Sorcerer is running something slightly different to his main powers. Even though he's the same model from the rest of the list, he's actually going to be running Warp Time and Prescience. Now the ability of Prescience for that +1 to hit is going to be applied hopefully to the Decimator engine, but would work equally well on the other guys. And he's also going to be running, as I said, Warp Time in order to get those Zangors into the fight as early as possible, or even get my Decimator engine potentially out of a bit of trouble. So a couple of different ways to use that, either offensively or defensively. So this is the 2 units I was talking about where I had to paint the extra 2 models, because originally I'd painted 20 Zangors in total, one of which was the Brayhorn. Now when I split that unit up into 2 10-man squads, which I thought I had the points for, I'd end up with a Brayhorn which I didn't have the points for. That took me over 500 points. So they're 10 points to go. So I removed one of those, which meant I was down to 19, and then I was still under my 500 points and I had that 7 points spare. So that's the reason why I painted 2 more Zangors to add to the list. Then finally we have the Decimator engine. Now I have showcased this around various social media and so on, and I think even on this channel when we did our Dark Zones update the other week. But just as a reminder, here's some more pictures of him because I think he's very pretty. It is a little bit questionable whether he is OP in the 500 point list, but there's lots of invulnerable save stuff coming out in these 500 points list. I've seen a few, I think I've mentioned before, you know, Necron Wraiths and so on, and I would just struggle to even hold my own and go 2 turns against something like that. So there was a few things I thought of that I might put the Butcher Cannons on this guy and make him purely shooty, but I've no other way, unless I really ran Death Hex on the Lord, or on the Sorcerer, sorry, that I'd be able to deal with it. So this was the only reason I went with it. Plus it's a pretty model and I wanted something looking pretty. So there we go then guys, that is the showcase of the 1750 point army and the 500 point combat patrol. I'd love to know in the comment section what you think of the list and what you think of the army, what you thought of the series in general actually. The Road to Dark Zones has been a 6-part series following the progress of how I've got my army ready for this campaign. Similar approach to any event really. If you've got a deadline and you're forced to make sure that you get those final units done. Like I was really put off doing the Mutalith Vortex Beast for a long time. I thought it was going to be the last model. I thought I might even switch it out for something else at some point that I already had painted. But no, I persevered, got through it, stuck to my deadline and got these units done, and I'm really happy that I have done it. So yeah, I'd love to know what you think of the series, what you thought of the Road to the Dark Zones. How do you think I'm actually going to do when I get there? I've had a good few practice games now. I'm fairly happy with the way it works. I haven't met super top tier lists like those from the Dark Elder Drakari, should I say, which really worry me. And I have been playing test games on boards with lots of scenery. I do think my army will suffer from a lack of terrain at Warhammer World. Not really sure what's going on there. We'll soon find out when we get there. But yeah, if you think I'm going to do alright, what do you think out of the 5 games? So 3 big games of 1750, 2 500-point games. How do you think I'm going to do? You think I'm going to get crushed and win that wooden spoon? Or do you think I'll fare alright? Who knows? Well, I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section below. But if you have enjoyed this series and indeed this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I shall catch you guys on the next video.